Hey, this is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. I want to start off by saying this teaching is really more like an addendum to our teaching titled Watching for That Day. If you haven't seen that 25-minute teaching, it would be extremely beneficial to help in understanding this teaching. In a nutshell, that teaching expounds on why and how the 4 fasts that are turned into feasts, as mentioned in Zechariah 8:19, could be a plausible time when the end times could begin. Now, let's start off with a verse from the book of Luke. Luke 21:36. Be always on the watch and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen, and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. While we can't and shouldn't set dates, we have to be open to watching dates just the same. Yeshua says right here that we should always be on the watch. I mean, let's face it, when one of Yahweh's holy days comes around, how can we not think in our hearts, oh man, could this be it? I mean, surely I'm not the only one that gets excited in that kind of hope around the holy days. You know, you're not declaring it is, but you're watching it with eagerness and hope just the same. So here Yeshua is telling us to watch and pray. To pray, we escape all that's going to happen, and that we may be able to stand before the Son of Man. For more on this verse, I recommend seeing our teachings titled The Church of Philadelphia, The Birth Pains, and the written article, Pre-trib. Whatever your current view of this verse is, it seems to be in parallel with the days being cut short as noted in Matthew 24. The time being cut short is actually in reference to the days spoken by Daniel as noted 7 verses earlier. So in reality, all time frames, even the 3.5 Moedim spoken by Daniel, are to be cut short. Exactly how short is the question. As noted in our teaching, the 1-year tribulation, it seems everything is cut short at the beginning and not the end. Meaning, it's cut short by having a delayed start and not being shortened at the conclusion. So the end stays the same. It just has a late start. We can't forget this all has to do with the start of the new covenant, the marriage of the Lamb as noted in Revelation chapter 19. This is the new marriage covenant just as we saw at Mount Sinai on Shavuot. As noted in our teaching, the eternal covenant, the new covenant is just that. It's new. It's not renewed. The verse in Jeremiah tells us it won't be like the first covenant. So it can't be renewed since it's not like the first one. So, since it's new, will it be established on the same days as the old? Or will it be completely new from the ground up? Could this be one more reason why the 4 fasts that are turned into feasts be considered for the end times? They broke the old covenant. He then brought that covenant to an end through Yeshua's death. Now we are waiting for him to establish the new covenant. So, could it be with the fasts that are turned into feasts when it all begins? Here are a few more random thoughts as to why we should be open to the 4 fasts that are turned into feasts. For example, consider what is prophesied through Isaiah. Isaiah 43. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. The context here is talking about the deliverance at the Red Sea, a deliverance that started at Passover. However, we have Jeremiah 16 telling us this time frame won't be remembered, but will be overshadowed by that which takes place in the future. Jeremiah 16. However, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when men will no longer say, "As surely as Yahweh lives, who brought the Israelites up out of Egypt." But they will say, "As surely as Yahweh lives, who brought the Israelites up out of the land of the north, and out of the countries where he banished them. For I will restore them to the land I gave their forefathers." This also parallels what was said by Jeremiah in chapter 3 regarding the Ark of the Covenant. "In those days, when your numbers have increased greatly in the land, declares Yahweh, men will no longer say, 'The Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh.' It will never enter their minds or be remembered. It will not be missed, nor will another one be made." Regarding this new thing back in Isaiah 43, we see it discusses how the wild animals honor him. This parallels how Hosea chapter 2 talks about him making a covenant with the wild animals. This is discussing the Gentiles. This is why Peter had the vision of the animals in the sheet in Acts chapter 10. The wild animals represented the Gentiles, that which was prophesied by Isaiah and Hosea. But notice how Isaiah 43 says, "Forget the former things." This is rather big. Seriously. Now, here's a question. If you were divorced and going to marry again, would you make your new marriage date happen on the day you married the one you had to divorce because of their unfaithfulness to you? Chances are you wouldn't. You would make the new marriage ceremony on a different date. I believe this could be more evidence of why we should be looking at the 4 fasts that are turned into feasts. The new feasts for the new marriage covenant. When considering this element as to why he wouldn't choose the same days from the previous covenant, an individual mentioned how the ways of Yahweh are not our ways, but rather his ways are higher than ours, implying while we would change the date, Yahweh wouldn't. However, at the same time, we see Luke 11 say this, "If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit to those who ask him?" This verse actually shows just how we would do something. The Father would do the same thing, even more so. So I'm really thinking the verse in Isaiah 55 is discussing our nature to sin versus his righteousness. In fact, the previous 2 verses seem to imply that's the context there. When discussing the 4 fasts that are turned to feasts, we must remember they're based on events surrounding the Babylonian invasion. Now, the verse we read earlier in Luke said we should pray we escape all that is coming. Since we are to pray this, is there anything that points to an escape before the Babylonian invasion occurred? Consider 2 Maccabees chapter 2. It was also in the same document that the prophet, having received an oracle, ordered that the tent and the ark should follow with him, and that he went out to the mountain where Moses had gone up and had seen the inheritance of God. Jeremiah came and found a cave dwelling, and he brought there the tent and the ark and the altar of incense. Then he sealed up the entrance. Some of those who followed him came up, intending to mark the way, but could not find it. When Jeremiah learned of it, he rebuked them and declared, "The place shall remain unknown until God gathers his people together again and shows his mercy." Jeremiah did this with the temple before the Babylonian invasion. Well, we are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And just as Jeremiah took that which was holy from the temple, Yahweh takes his bride, those who make themselves ready, out from the tribulation just the same. Then the dragon goes off to make war against the rest of the offspring. Then, just like we see in the 5th month when the temple was destroyed, the dragon defeats those who were not of the chosen. He defeats them. We are the temple of the Holy Spirit. But if we are not spotless, if we don't purify ourselves, He will purify us. Thus, those who are not taken are purified at this time. And just as the temple was handed over to Nebuchadnezzar, the temple of the Holy Spirit will be handed over to the Anti-Messiah. They are defeated just as the temple was destroyed. This is also parallel to the outer courts of the temple being destroyed by the Gentiles in Revelation chapter 11. Now, one final thought. Moses was hidden for 3 months when he was a baby. He was spared from the destruction. I've always wondered why this detail is given. I'm talking the 3 months specifically. Moses' name means drawn from water. Why is that important? Well, the Gentiles, nations, are represented by waters, oceans. So just before the times of the Gentiles begin, those who follow Moses will be drawn out. Or they are possibly protected for 3 months starting in the 4th month and then are drawn out sometime around Sukkot in the 7th month, possibly making the start of the tribulation around the time of Sukkot. Many of you know how we show in the teaching declaring the end from the beginning that the tribulation could be as short as 6 months. Well, under that premise, along with the 3 months of how Moses was protected, one can't help but wonder if Yahweh holds back the destruction for the first 3 of those 6 months, and then draws his children out to him. Of course, that would imply the tribulation would only have the remaining 3 months to take place. That's hard to believe even for me. However, as strange as it sounds, it is a thought to be considered. There are just so many scenarios that could apply and come in various forms when considering the 4 fasts that are turned to feasts. Again, you'll want to watch our teaching, Watching for That Day, in conjunction with this one. All I ask is that we stay open and continue to seek Him for understanding, however or whenever it's to take place. And to do as Yeshua said, to always be on the watch and pray that we may be able to escape all that is about to happen. Well, that's all I have. Think about it. Pray about it. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, Shalom.